Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Key Time Sports. It's Key Time coming back to talk about the New York Knicks and where I see them leading up to the playoffs later on in the NBA season. First off, I'm going to start with their roster that is currently assembled right now. First off, they have Precious Achua, OG Ananobi, Mikael Bridges, Jalen Brunson, Pacome Didet, Josh Hart, Ariel Hakaporti, Tyler Kolek, Miles McBride, Kevin McCullough Jr., Cameron Payne, Mitchell Robinson, Matt Ryan, Laundry Shamet, Jacob Toppin, Carl Anthony Towns, and Dion Wright. Now, right now, they're currently 34 and 18. They are the third team, excuse me, they are the third team in the East right now. So I'm going to go as far as go off of some statistics that has happened over the last 3 or 4 weeks when it comes to these players. We know that Jalen Brunson is the leading force when it comes to the New York Knicks with 23.6 points per game. Obviously, after that, Carl Anthony Towns, he's averaging 24 points per game. Mikael Bridges, 18 points. OG Ananobi, 16 points. Josh Hart, 14 points. But Josh Hart, he is mainly there for defense. Miles McBride, 9 points. Cameron Payne, 7 points. Precious Achua, 6 points. Landry Shamet, 2 points. Tyler Kolek, 1 point, 1.9 points per game that he's been averaging. Ariel Haporti, 1.7. Jericho Sims, 1.6. Matt Ryan, 1.5. Pam Didet, 1.5. Jacob Toppin, 0.4. And Dion Wright has yet to average a point this season, zero point 0.0 points per game. Now, like I've always said, teams that are led by Tom Thibodeau, they do very well in the regular season. But the hiccup about that is in the playoffs, when you need consistency from your bench and your backup players, it's not there. You saw last year where I believe Josh Hart he played 25 straight games, played every minute of those 25 straight games, got to got to the playoffs in the first round, and the bench for the New York Knicks was worn out. What what I'm seeing right now, it seems like that the New York Knicks, they are on the same trajectory as last year. It seems nothing has changed. They just changed maybe two, three players in the lineup, but the New York Knicks, I mean, what do we really expect from the New York Knicks, America? I mean, over the last 30, 40, excuse me, 55, 60 years, that they haven't done nothing. They have just been an average run of the mill team that can make some noise every 10 to 12 years, get to a second round matchup, and then go home. Now last year, first round matchup versus the Indiana Pacers, I knew the Indiana Pacers were going to win that series. But when you look at the current standings in the Eastern Conference, if I had to say right now it seems like the New York Knicks would be playing the Detroit Pistons. And the Detroit Pistons, I'm going to do a segment about them later on this week or next week. But the Detroit Pistons, they are no slouch. If the New York Knicks play the Detroit Pistons, I would not be surprised if Detroit shocked a lot of spectators and won that series strictly because their bench. The Detroit Pistons have the better bench than the New York Knicks. Bench production for the New York Knicks is 23, 20 points. No, 23 points per game. That's what it is. And in the playoffs, you are going to need everybody to increase their play. You have to, or else you are going to go home in the second. Well, not even the second round, in the first round. So when you look at the New York Knicks long term, I don't think that they're gonna make it too far. See and even if they lose to the Detroit Pistons, if they are fortunate enough to play them in the first round, the season will be a failure because you have one of the youngest teams in the NBA along with a very inexperienced bunch that last season it seemed like they didn't know what to do. And as far as from an organizational standpoint, the Detroit Pistons, they were a clown show last season. Now this season, they have they have became an average team, and on the defensive side of the court, they are no slouch. They have one of the top defenses in the NBA. So the New York Knicks, they better watch out. So right now, and another thing, right now the New York Knicks, they are dealing with injuries. I mean, you see where their top defensive guy, Josh Hart, he is day to day. He has a knee a knee injury, not a knee contusion, but just a knee injury. OG Anunoby, he is out with a foot injury. Mitchell Robinson, he is out with an ankle. They are reportedly targeting his comeback date after the All Star break, which is late next week, early the following week, maybe the last week of February. And then you have Pacome Datet with a toe injury, and he won't play tonight. So, critical injuries down the stretch, the New York Knicks do not need. When you look at their depth as far as their first, their starting lineup to their second, third, fourth, and even fifth lineup, it seems like the point total it drops from every lineup. With the starters, all of those starters they average about to all of their scores together, they average like 75 to 80 points per game. When you get to that second lineup, 65. When you get to that third lineup, it's 45. When you get to that fourth lineup, it might be a good 25. And then when you get to that fifth lineup, now the fifth lineup hardly ever plays. So the fifth lineup, I'm just going to say that the fifth lineup averages 15 points per game. So the New York Knicks, they are an average team. I don't see them beating a team like I don't see them beating a team like Cleveland in a 7 game series. I don't see them beating Boston in a 7 game series. I don't see them I don't even see them beating the pay even if they play the Detroit Pistons. I don't see them beating the Detroit Pistons in a 7 game series because when you look at it right now, if the playoffs start today, the New York Knicks would be facing the Detroit Pistons. Now, who knows? There's a lot of time between now and the end of the regular season. Who knows if the New York Knicks they are not increasing their win total because you have Cleveland and Boston who are number one and number two respectively. Now with the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers, I could see the New York Knicks being fourth and the Pacers being third. Not to mention the Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks, they are only separated by a game and a half. And you have 25 more games to play. Plus, Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks have to play each other three more times in the regular season. So a lot of things that are about to happen in the last, I'm going to say, 6 weeks of the regular season when it comes to the Eastern Conference and the New York Knicks in particularly. They are going to have to fight tooth and nail. Plus they are having Plus, they are having injuries to their top guys at the wrong time of the season. That is why I say the New York Knicks, it wouldn't surprise me if they go home in the first or second round, because the last time New York Knicks made it to the conference finals was 1999. And that was the year they played the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals. Since then, I'm going to give y'all a list of how far they have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, everybody knows how the New York Knicks played in the early 2000s. They were atrocious. 2000 season, sub 500 record. 2001 season, sub 500 record. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 was sub 500 records. Then the New York Knicks get Carmelo Anthony, and pretty much they were a contender at that time, but they couldn't get past the Miami Heat, or they couldn't get past the Indiana Pacers for that matter. Then you get Phil Jackson as basketball consultant and leader of basketball operations. And that was a complete clown show from 2017 to, excuse me, not 2017, but from 2014 to 2018. And then they fired Phil Jackson. And then you went 2, maybe 3 years from 2019 to 2021, 22 without without a without a good, the word I'm looking for, without a good projectile into the future when it comes to a team that is being built around a cornerstone player. The New York Knicks, they had to trade to get Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson initially started his career with the Dallas Mavericks. So now you get so now the New York Knicks get Jalen Brunson. This is his second year with the New York Knicks. Last year, he pretty much carried the New York Knicks later on in the season. But, when it comes to a top player carrying a team, he can only do that for so long. And then there's another team that could come out of nowhere, a much deeper team, a team that is defensively sound. That's another terminology that I like to use. Defensively sound. And let me tell you, New York Knicks, if they do get a chance to play Cleveland or Boston in a 7-game series, both of those teams, the Cavaliers and the Celtics, are more defensively sound than the Knicks. See, Tom Thibodeau, he has always had his teams behind the eight ball. When he was with Chicago, he had some good teams there with Derrick Rose, and then he had Jimmy Butler. Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler, that year in 2015, they played the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had them on the ropes, but the Cavaliers, led by LeBron James, pretty much stole that series away from them and won 4 straight games. And then you fast forward to Minnesota. Still had the same problems there. Tom Thibodeau, he tried to bring all of his players from Chicago to Minnesota. How did that work out for him? It didn't work out well. Then he got fired from that job. Then we fast forward now to the New York Knicks. In the past 3 years, let's see. The New York Knicks, let's see, they made it to the playoffs twice. Well, excuse me, they made it to the playoffs all 3 years, and they've lost in the second round twice. And last year they lost in the first round. So it is Tom Thibodeau taking the team backwards, America? Because what I think is he is doing that. And like I've always said, when a general manager feels like a head coach or a gen or yeah, when a general manager and owner feels like a head coach is taking their organization backwards, it's time to fire him. So now, and let me tell you, I am going to correct myself. I am not saying that Tom Thibodeau needs to be fired, but he needs to show improvement and go deeper in the playoffs. Starting this playoff cycle the when the playoffs start in April, he needs to get to the second round, win the second round, and go to the conference finals, and maybe have a gentleman sweep by the Cleveland Cavaliers or Boston Celtics for him to save his job, because the New York Knicks have just been average over the last 14, 15 years, excuse me, 10 or 12 years, because I already said 2009, 2010, they were atrocious. So now when we see the New York Knicks, they are 34-18. I already showed you all their starting lineup, but for anybody that needs a refresher as far as their team roster, here is a refresher before I sign off. Here are their injuries for the New York Knicks. Here is their depth for everybody who is on the team. And here is their remaining schedule. Now they play the Indiana Pacers tonight on TNT True TV Max. And if you get the NBA TV package, you can see the Indiana Pacers on that platform as well. But one thing I can say about the New York Knicks is they're an average team, and I don't see them going very far in the playoffs. Hopefully, I'm wrong for you New York Knicks fans out there. And hopefully, Stephen A. Smith hears this, because I'm talking directly to him. I'm talking directly to him. And let me tell you, he is one of the most staunchest critics of the New York Knicks. Now let's see if he can see this video, and you know what? After the show, I'm going to send this video personally to Stephen A. Smith and show him what I see where the New York Knicks are going wrong. And down the stretch, let me tell you, they have some tough games. Like I said, next week, the week after, they have the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics. Then they have the Los Angeles Lakers. The They have the Los Angeles Lakers, and they have Golden State. Now, Golden State, they are pretty much down in the dumps, but they are able to have games where they catch fire, and also they can get on a run. But outside of that, I don't see the New York Knicks doing much else. And with that, those are my outlook. That is my remaining season outlook for the New York Knicks. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, click the notification bell to get notified of all of my reaction videos, shows, and other content. Please like, share, and follow Key City Sports on Instagram. We are now on Instagram. Thank you all for watching the show every day. We are over 200 subscribers finally, and we are only going to grow from this point. Also, over on Instagram, the show has reached out to over 750 accounts. So from this show to that show, we are reaching people throughout the world, and that's all that this show has ever wanted. So one last thing I have to say, remember, the key is always on time. And for my catchphrase on Key City Sports on Instagram. Remember, doors are always open when you have keys to the city. See you all tomorrow.